timer. Welcome to the party, pal. You're for the Neighborhood Mastercast, back with you once again, and I'm honored, very honored, to have Mr. David Gregory with us, or as he calls himself, David Severin, today. He is David. Thank you for being here, man.
My pleasure.
Now we had to reschedule a little bit, but I know things are hectic on your end, and you are all the way across the pond, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm back in England. I'm back where I grew up. I just arrived in the city of Nottingham.
And you did not escape from LA. You're just there. You're basically on sort of a working vacation, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in England for about, actually, I have no idea how long I've been here. I know we had to quarantine for the first 5 days, which was a complete twilight zone. And then we got out and we've just been nonstop shooting and walking around and catching up with people ever since.
Oh man, you probably can't reveal. I mean, we've seen pictures on Facebook and stuff. But you probably can't reveal what it's for, right? But you've been talking to Simon Pegg and people like that. That's
right. Yes, I've been talking to a lot of people for various forthcoming releases, but yeah, I'm not going to specify what they're for.
Gotcha.
I have a feeling that some of the more narrow-minded of the Severin fan base aren't going to like him anyway. So,
well, I guess it remains to be seen. But I'm excited to find out what it is, and I appreciate somebody who goes out there and gets those interviews in person and hustles that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do as many as I can, but we have so many different featurettes going on for so many different releases. I obviously can't do all the interviews myself, and nor should I. I mean, we have plenty of perfectly able people who can go out and shoot featurettes these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's become much easier now. Almost everybody has a camera, so you know.
Well, that's actually become part of the problem. I think some features are actually a bit shit, but not ours. So
yes, there's definitely a mark of quality there. So we I wanted to have you on specifically because you guys are nuking the mid-year, according to. So how did
that was kind of a play on how we nuked our own website last year. So so this year things went a lot smoothly, although I was asleep first thing this morning when it started, which was kind of by design because it's always the most stressful part of the sale when it starts. And infallibly, no matter how much money we throw at it or expertise, when it first starts, we just get bombarded, and it seems to be with more people every year, which is great, but somehow it just fucks up the gears of the website, and I don't know the details because I don't understand that sort of thing. But basically, apparently the glitches happened for the first half an hour or something like that, but it never crashed the site completely and has been fine ever since, from what I understand.
Yeah, no, I was on there with a whole bunch of people, and we kept getting 504 error messages. But then you would refresh a couple times and it would come back, so it wasn't ever completely dead, which is the good news. And I think everybody was able to get their orders in, so that's
well. That's the other thing is that I think people panic a lot more about things selling out, but we really make sure that we have enough of pretty much everything. There's sometimes something that we don't predict will sell a lot faster than we expected. Like today, it was the post-nuke book that was published in France, and we've had it translated. And the first English language publishing of that just went like hotcakes, more than any book we've ever done before. But luckily, we were able to order a bunch more. So again, anyone who wants that can still get it, I think.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah, I was gonna get to the out of stock stuff. Real quick in the chat, Joel says, Thank you for Santa Sangre 4K, Perdita Durango, Day of the Beast 4Ks, making my way to Eurocrypt. I'm digging it. And I love my Lindsay Baker box.
Well, there's plenty more box sets in the works. It's become a ridiculous mountain that I've set for our team to climb because you know, it seems like certain things just deserve to be packaged in box sets at the moment. You know, whereby you know, you might have a couple of classics that need restoring, but then there's maybe some B titles that are similarly themed. Well, we put them in nicely packaged box sets now, and we have I can't even keep track of the amount of box sets we have in production at the moment. 2 more of which will be coming out later this year.
Oh wow! So we'll get at least 2 more box sets this year.
At least 2 more, yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's exciting. I know one has sort of been hinted at by you guys, the Emmanuel box set. Yes.
So there's the Black Emmanuel box set is in process, and it's going to be mind-blowingly huge. And there's one of the films we know where the elements are, but we're struggling to actually get them into the country. And so we're close though. You know, it's been something we've been working on for a while, and I actually went to the lab where they were stored and pulled all the elements we wanted, but that was pre-COVID, and so since then it's just been a nightmare to get them shipped over. But I'm hearing that we're closer than ever, so that really will be, you know, when we can actually put a release date on Black Emmanuel. Okay.
Oh, okay, that's exciting. Actually, before we jump into the New Year sale, the mid-year sale, something about your adventure in the UK I wanted to ask you about. You posted some pictures about this discovery of film canisters in a barn. How did this happen?
Well, actually, it's well, I mean, I think I made it clear that that this was the barn of James Kenham Clark, the late James Kenham Clark, who well, he did the music for Vampires, but he was also a filmmaker, and he directed the Video Nasty expose, aka House on Straw Hill. And we've released that on Blu-ray already, and you know, we had to put a disclaimer at the head because the elements were in terrible condition. And so and I didn't quite know what the situation was, other than that he'd been keeping these film elements in his barn. So I organized to actually go to this barn with the person who's controlling his affairs. And sure enough, there was just a lot of rusty film cans covered in pigeon shit in the corner. And so I wanted to actually rescue that stuff before it actually got worse. And so that's what I did. I went in there, and there was actually no light in there either. So I was sifting through rusty cans, you know, and sort of bringing it out onto the grass outside to see what was there. It was very hard to see what was there because all the labels had all rotted off as well. And some of the cans, you pick them up and they just turn to dust. You know, they you know, if they had a hole in them, then that meant that the film and the can themselves were basically useless. But luckily, quite a few of them were sealed shut, which meant that I couldn't necessarily open them, but which I'll have to do when I get them to another destination. But that would lead you to believe that at least the film is salvageable. Now, in terms of what condition it'll be in once I get it out of the can, it remains to be seen as well. But, you know, I doubt anything there's going to be completely pristine, but it needed to be retrieved before it got worse.
Well, that's, I mean, you're doing the Lord's work when it comes to actual film preservation. I mean, you're finding them in all these abandoned places. That's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was fun. Really. It's you know, the people there didn't really know what was there, and so I was trying to sort of decipher what was there. I mean, he had all the rushes from another film that he made, so that stuff is not worth me taking literally tons of material and shipping it to the US, because it's probably useless anyway, even if the film was intact. But you know, obviously trying to find the actual complete films was something that needed to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think a lot of people forget that is the hard part of owning a boutique label. You know, getting your hands dirty and trying to find these elements. And we'll talk about the films today specifically. Why don't we go ahead and do that now? Let me add this to the thing. So I'm on the website now, and I guess what we'll do is we'll specifically discuss the films as they stand, and I'd love for you to share your journeys on these. We'll start, of course, with I think what's your favorite release of the mid-year? Yes,
by far, yeah. Just because not that I dislike any of the others, but this is a film that I've wanted to give the Severin treatment to for years, you know, or get involved in a special edition of before Severin even existed. But for one reason or another, we've never been able to get the rights for any of the companies that I've run or that I've worked for. And so thanks to Joe Rubin at Vinegar Syndrome, we were able to make it happen. And so once we got the negative in from the Museum of Modern Art, we did the scan in LA and did it in 4K, got it colored for a UHD in HDR, and I'd already actually started shooting extras some years ago, just in anticipation of this happening someday. Like you may remember a featurette we did on Burial Ground at the Villa Parisi, where they shot lots of horror movies, including Patrick Still Lives and Nightmare Castle and Nosferatu in Venice, and Burial Ground obviously being a key one. Couple of Bavas, you know, things like that. But Blood for Dracula was one of the main ones that was shot there, and really utilized the location well. So we got Stefania Cassini, who most people know from, well, most horror fans know from Suspiria. She's also in Blood for Dracula, and so she actually gives us a tour of the Villa Parisi and where she got bitten. And you know, the place has not changed in the almost 50 years since the film was made. So it was a great location tour with her, and she's quite a personality, and was able to, you know, give us an interview about the film as well. But then we also have another almost 4 hours of featurette interviews, you know, and everybody we could find who's still alive who works on the film is interviewed about it. And then Claudio Gizzi, who is also interviewed, he did the soundtrack, which is probably my favorite movie soundtrack of all time. We got his soundtrack, and it's been remastered by Claudio Fiano, and it's a longer edition of the soundtrack than's ever been available before. So, and then Elizabeth Yu did some beautiful artwork for the slipcover, and we used a couple of the Italian posters and the digipack on the inside. We really went to town to make it as good an edition as we could.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing release. It's right up there with your Santa Sangre release, and
which is my other favorite movie that we've put out. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think we're of the same opinion that Santa Sangre is just a masterpiece.
Yeah, yes, it is. No, absolutely, hands down masterpiece. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's actually Santa Sangre was, I think, the first Severin film I watched. It was at the Egyptian. There was the Egyptian, and Simon Boswell was there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Simon's worked with us a lot. I mean, he worked on Theatre Bizarre. He worked on Perdita Durango. I mean, he's done the score for a few films we've put out. And yeah, and he curated like a best of for the CD with Santa Sangre, because he's put out a double disc vinyl edition of the Santa Sangre soundtrack, which you can buy directly from him.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. So yeah, so this one is the Big Daddy. Now this last night when the sale started, this sold out, and then it came back like, well, and what was is that something people need to worry about? Is this something that could potentially sell out?
You know, it's going a lot faster than we expected, which is why it actually went down to 0 on the website. But there's plenty of copies left. I'm sure it'll be available throughout the weekend.
Okay, well, fantastic. That's good to hear. Let's talk about Warriors of the Year 2072. This is the Fulci title of the sale. How did this one come into your hands?
The same way Raiders of Atlantis did. We actually did a deal with the big studio in France, Studio Canal, and often some of these exploitation films which have been out of circulation for a while, they've been out of circulation because they're owned by big studios, and big studios either don't want to deal with companies like us, or they want too much money, or there's definitely hurdles on dealing with a big studio, because it's much easier to deal with an independent company, or maybe one of the bigger independents in Italy we license from all the time. But this was owned by Studio Canal, and we had to do a deal with several titles. So we got Warriors and Raiders of Atlantis from them. But the good thing about that is that they do not skimp when it comes to their transfers. So the fact was, Warriors actually took the longest because they couldn't find a film element, or they couldn't get it out of a lab in Italy, or some such business that we weren't able to get the scan for quite some time. But ultimately, they got the interpositive on both of these films, did a beautiful scan and color correction, and they both look phenomenal. They've never looked this good. And this is the longer European version, not the version that Troma has released over the years.
Oh, okay, because I'm familiar with the Troma version. So this is a longer kind of, I guess, more action-packed cut?
Yeah, that's right. And it also comes with the soundtrack and a ton of extras by Freakorama, who do most of our Europe or Italy-based extras, and also a couple by Callum and Naomi. And commentary by Nathaniel and Troy, and a full-on special edition for this Fulci movie, which was one of the last of the Fulci movies from his classic era, which hasn't been given the Blu-ray treatment.
That's awesome. Actually, that reminds me, Nathaniel tells me to say hello.
Oh, hi, Nathaniel. Nathaniel's great. I've known Nathaniel since not long after I first came to the US in 2000. And
oh, wow.
We've been pals ever since.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, we're going to have him on the show next month. So he said, oh, yeah, tell him.
He's great. His website's been unfailingly reliable since the beginning of DVD, really. I mean, he used to do these volumes for Fab Press called DVD Delirium. But, of course, they were out of date before they even, came off the printer, because so many different territories were releasing all these movies. So he stopped doing that. But Mondo Digital, his site, is basically kind of like the news version of that. It keeps everything up to date. So you can see the progress that all these films have made in the last 20 years from, their first DVD editions right up to the latest releases. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to chat with him. We have Andrew Furtado in the chat. He says, bye.
Well, he would say that. He works for Severin, so. Andrew back off holiday because he shouldn't be working.
Yes, well, we were going to have him on, but he says, "Oh, I'm actually going on vacation." I'm like, "All right, next time." Yep. So we talked a little bit about Raiders of Atlantis, but this one has some unique special features because we've got audio commentary.
Ruggero Deodato. So this is Ruggero Deodato, obviously of Cannibal Holocaust and House on the Edge of the Park and Jungle Holocaust fame. One of the great Italian exploitation filmmakers of the era. And again, this is one that's really been not had a decent release in a long time. I don't even know if it had a decent DVD release. But even if it did, we knew it had been quite some time. So we once that one became available, and funnily enough, it almost escaped our attention when we were doing the deal with Studio Canal because it was listed under a different title, and we're like, whatever happened to that movie? And then Studio Canal alerted us that they actually had it. So we were pretty happy to get that one too.
Was it under that Atlantis Interceptors?
No, because that's the name that I know it on. I used to have the poster on my bedroom door, and it was released in England on video as the Atlantis Interceptors. It was something else, something I was unfamiliar with.
So speaking of being unfamiliar, I've actually never even heard of this film. How would you describe this movie?
Well, it's another one of the post-nuke movies. It's probably the most outrageous of the bunch that we're doing. I mean, it's fucking action-packed and just completely nuts. Ruggiero, by the way, doesn't particularly like this movie. I saw it. There's been a documentary made on his entire career recently, which is terrific. It was made by the guys at this Fantaspoa Festival, and it's a full career interview with him and all of his movies. And this one he's kind of dismissive about, which is absurd, Ruggiero, because this movie's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think for me, going back to another film we were talking about, for me, the most interesting thing on Blood for Dracula would be to hear Paul Morrissey talk.
Well, Paul Morrissey's interview is something else. I mean, he has a worldview which is, well, basically the world is a toilet is what he said in the interview. I mean, he does not hold back in this interview, and we got it off Uwe Huber in Germany, who interviewed him, I think 3 or 4 years ago now, when he was there getting an honor, and he just he obviously felt quite relaxed to really speak his mind and talk shit.
Oh my God. Well, now you guys have to make the world is a toilet T-shirts, right, for for Black Friday?
Yeah, there you go.
I think that would sell quite well. Let's get over back to the main page here and take a look at Endgame. This is the other post-apocalyptic.
Yep, this is the third, and this one's a Joe Damato picture. Again, been out of circulation for far too long, and we were able to get a scan from the negative. Looks fantastic. Obviously, we release a lot of Joe Damato films. He really is the king of sleazy exploitation in the Italian industry, and that's saying something. And this one features his regular stalwarts, George Eastman, aka Luigi Montefiore, who was interviewed on the disc, and the great Laura Gemser, of course, who we'll be seeing a lot more of when we do the Black Emanuel box.
Quick question: what is it about Laura Gemser? I feel like maybe I missed the boat on this, but so many people are obsessed with Laura Gemser.
What is it? I mean, she's one of the most beautiful women that ever lived. So, I mean, I think that helps. You know?
Yeah.
and she's obviously quite fearless, and has starred in probably more outrageous movies than any woman I can think of, honestly. And unfortunately, she's also an enigma because she doesn't do interviews, even though she's still very much alive and well. And she's moved on in her life. I wouldn't say turned her back, because she never dismissed what she did. She still loves Joe Damato, but she was also married to a guy called Gabriele Tinti, who was in most of these movies with her, and that was kind of their marriage. They would go to exotic locations to star in Joe Damato movies together, and other directors, but that was kind of part of the deal. If you wanted Laura Gemser, you got Gabriele Tinti, and Gabriele Tinti was a guy who had I mean, he's in this picture, for example, but he had quite an impressive career of his own before that. But I think that just became their part of their marriage, part of their life was making these films. But then he died, and so subsequently she got married again and started a new life. So she's just like, that's another chapter of my life. I'm not talking about it anymore.
Copy that. So she's still around then. I have not. I'll be honest. I have not really checked out a lot of the Emmanuel films, but has she been available for interviews and things like that?
Not at all. That's the point. She's been. We've tried many times over the years. The last time she did an interview for talking about those movies specifically was when Alex Cox did an Emmanuel documentary, I think around 2000, around the same time I was doing the Emmanuel featurettes but they were the Sylvia Crystal films. He basically did a thing about the whole Emmanuel phenomenon and got a short interview with Laura Gemser, which is on YouTube, I believe. But it's in, I forget what it's called, but it's Alex Cox's Emmanuel documentary, and she's in it briefly. But that's 20 years ago now, and she's given an interview since, despite being offered quite a bit to do one.
Oh wow, wow, that's interesting. I guess she's just left it behind her.
Yep.
Let's talk about Retribution. This is this seems almost like an outlier in the in the mid-year sale. How did Retribution come?
Well, it's got a apocalypse overtones, but this was quite a big late 80s horror movie, and when I say that, I mean it was relatively large budget. It was a theatrical release. Certainly in England, it had a theatrical release. It wasn't a straight-to-video effort, and it was directed by a guy called Guy Magar, who had done a lot of television, like Starsky and Hutch and things like that. And and it's a terrific late 80s horror movie, full of gory bits and monster effects and things like and in-camera visual effects, because obviously it's before CGI, which Guy is very keen to talk about in his commentary, and has some wacky kills in it and terrific acting and excellent production. Music by Alan Howarth, who obviously worked with Carpenter quite a lot. And yeah, we've got a 3-disc edition with the Howarth score and the 2 versions of the movie. There's one version which was released on Dutch VHS, which has a little bit extra gore in it, which Guy doesn't think is the better version, because he actually cut that gore out in order to make the US release version, which he considers his director's cut. But somehow it ended up through a convoluted reason to do with the sales agent who co-financed the movie. They got an early screening copy of the film on tape, and that's what they sold to the Dutch, sent to the Dutch as their master, basically, for their release.
Wow. And so was any restoration done on this video release, or how was that?
Yeah. I mean, basically, we got I think it was a low-com print that we scanned for the director's cut, and that looks absolutely phenomenal. It was a pristine element, but we scoured the globe to figure out if these gory bits ever exist on film, and Guy was insistent that they never made it into any like release 35mm version of the film, so there's no way that they would exist. So, but we didn't initially take his word for it. We actually searched archives all over the world, and we found other film elements, but he was right. There was no film version. There was no 35mm version of the film that had those scenes in. So we were able to do an up-res from a standard def video. I think it was a 1-inch master maybe, and we cut it, just those bits we cut in. We still use the other version. We cut those bits in and had a expert color corrector try and match it so that it's as seamless as it can be.
Amazing. Okay, great. So, and yeah, 3 discs and a slipcase with this one. Yep. And oh man, this is
look at all those extras. I mean, Heather Buckley went out and I said, "Can you get some extras for Retribution?" And she obviously went above and beyond to get everybody she possibly could to do interviews about making this movie, and everybody had really solid, positive things to say about the making of this late 80s horror movie. So that's always nice. And we also have Guy Magar's student film, which he made with the guy who wrote Lee Wasserman, who wrote Retribution. And so they were at film school together in London, and they made this short film Bingo, which was quite the shocking cause célèbre in their film school at the time. It's only like a short 3-minute film, but it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So we scanned that as well from the only existing print.
Excellent. Okay, well, I mean, you guys definitely went above and beyond for this movie. That's amazing.
Yeah, it deserves it.
Yes, I watched it a long time ago, but I was really impressed with the effects. It's certainly a movie that has. It's a ballsy movie. I mean, it's certainly a ballsy movie.
Yes.
Speaking of ballsy movies, let's talk Jess Franco.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we could talk about both of them together. They're basically two films from his Golden Films era, which also produced things like Macumba Sexual, A Mention of the Living Dead, and Inconfessional Orgies of Emmanuel. And this was the period where he first had the most freedom. Now, with the freedom came a very limited budget. So when he was working for Golden Films, they basically gave him probably like 10 grand, maybe. and he and Antonio Mayans and Lena Romay, his partner, would go to the Canary Islands or some seaside location and shoot movies, and shoot several concurrently, and they would get their other friends in and just make these fever dreams of Jess, almost like Jess does, making them like a jazz composition. And both House of Lost Women and Black Boots Leather Whip are two examples of this, and they both star Lena and Antonio Mayans. And I asked Stephen Thrower, who obviously is one of the key experts on Jess Franco movies. If you've ever read either of his books on Jess Franco, he much knows his filmography inside and out, which is no mean feat when you consider how many movies we're talking about. And I said, which films need a Blu-ray release? And he gave me a list of maybe 6 or 7 titles which were absolutely essentially in need of this, and these were 2 of them. So we managed to do that. We've got both of them have Stephen talking about the films, but also the next 2 chapters in the Land of Franco series, where we go with Stephen and Antonio Mayans to the locations in Spain where Franco shot several of his, I should say, where we go to locations and you'll see, okay, that's where he shot this film, that's where he shot this film, that's where he shot this film. You know, we would be driving past some old ruin, and Steve would look out the window and go, oh my God, there's that building. And we'd jump out of the car and he would recognize it from some film among the, 100 and however many movies that Franco made. It was a very enjoyable trip. Anyway, so that's episodes 5 and 6 of In the Land of Franco are on there. And then House of Lost Women also has a CD of library music by his regular collaborator, Daniel J. White, from of tracks that we used in Franco movies.
That's awesome. This might be a hard.
I have to say also that another major expert, definitely if there's 3 major experts in the world on the films of Jess Franco, one is Stephen Thrower, another is Robert Monell, who runs the I'm in a Jess Franco State of Mind website. He also does commentary on both of them, selected scenes on one of them, and then a full commentary on the other.
Oh, there you go. This might be a hard question to answer, but do you have a favorite Jess Franco movie?
Yeah, funnily enough, my favorite is Bloody Moon, because it was the first one I saw, and I absolutely love Bloody Moon. But Franco hated it, and Franco files would tell you that it's not really a Jess Franco film because it doesn't have his usual obsessions in it or style. It was definitely a work for hire. But that's the film that I probably revisit the most. I also love She Killed in Ecstasy, which again is kind of one of the famous ones. I love Virgin Among the Living Dead. I love Macumba Sexual. There's a once you open that door, the floodgates open, and there's just so much to see and enjoy in that filmography, even with the ridiculous ones like The Devil Hunter, which is an absurd movie, but I really quite enjoyed it.
I'm with you. I think Bloody Moon is probably his best picture, but that's funny that he didn't like it. He
didn't particularly like blood and gore, So things like The Devil Hunter and Bloody Moon and the cannibals and stuff like that, he was kind of dismissive of. But I think Bloody Moon in particular is actually quite an effective slasher. I mean, it makes a great double feature with Pieces. Yeah,
absolutely. We got some questions in the chat. I don't know if you can answer these. Just chat, just so you know, he's not going to give anything away. So if you ask about what is potential, he will give you as much of an answer as possible. But he's not going to reveal anything today, unfortunately. Ken says, are the post-apocalyptic films Thunder 1 through 3 and Urban Warriors a possibility?
Urban Warriors we haven't looked into. Thunder 1 to 3 are actually owned by a studio, so not really possible for us.
There you go. John Peter says,
so I do enjoy them, so you know.
There you go. He's a fan. John says, David is my favorite boutique label guy.
Oh, thanks, John.
Let's see. Jerry L says, will the Lindsay Baker box set be back in stock at some point down the road?
Wait, is it out of stock? If it is, then we will rectify that. I believe there's still copies left.
Let me see. I'll go over and check out real quick. It was out of stock last night.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I mean, so yeah. What things it seems to have? We should be prepared for the windfall. That each sale seems to get exponentially bigger, but when we don't want to be kind of overconfident and just fill Jason's warehouse with too much stuff. So, you know, he only has so much stuff on hand, but I believe we will be able to. Yeah, I see that. That's out of stock. I'll have a word with Jason, but because I believe there's still copies left at the distributor.
Excellent. Well, hang in there, Jerry. You'll be able to
check back over the weekend, Jerry. They'll hopefully stuff that's out of stock, unless it's all gone. They should be replenished.
Here's another question from Ken. Any chance Franco's Dracula, Prisoner of Frankenstein coming to Blue?
Yeah, that's a weird one. The short answer is no. I mean, ultimately, it will probably come to Blu-ray, but we haven't been able to find an element that would make it possible.
Copy that. John Peters asks, Bahia Blanca gone forever?
I never say never, but for now, yes, it's out of stock. We actually got in a bit of a fight because there's two different companies that claim to own it.
Aha. Okay. Joel says, David, have you noticed an uptick in sales since the pandemic? I discovered Severin and VS as soon as the pandemic started and started going hog wild with purchases.
Well, I'm very glad, Joel, that we could be there for you during the pandemic. You know, I don't know about an uptick, but it has stayed steady. We're extremely lucky that we were in a line of work that was able to, you know, stay in business during the pandemic, because obviously so many weren't. And I don't mean that in a gloaty way. I mean that just, you know, we didn't plan it that way. Nobody expected a pandemic, but sure enough, you know, people needed movies to watch, and we had plenty of films that we'd licensed. So, and we're in various stages of production. So we were able to continue bringing out discs throughout the pandemic. The only thing that kind of messed with us was, you know, production, shipping times, things like that. You know, was always slower than we were promised. And you know, I can assure you guys it was not us slacking off when, you know, the Al Adamson box showed up a month later than it was supposed to, or a month and a half, or whatever it was. I don't know. I've blacked it out. But you know, things like that, it was a very special packaging. So it had to be done in Taiwan. And then the factory in Taiwan, while it never closed, was short-staffed. And then in addition to that, FedEx, only so many planes were flying from Taiwan. So we had to, so FedEx, you know, could only get so many units of the Al Adamson box over to the US to be packaged. And then, of course, our company that does our distribution and actually assembles the box, they were short-staffed as well, because they could only have, you know, a handful of people in compared to what they usually have. So all those kinds of things have a knock-on effect. But, you know, at the end of the day, we were able to keep moving things forward, even though certain things were slowed down.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing that that you guys in Vinegar Syndrome were able to keep churning stuff out. I mean, that's definitely a testament to you guys to wanting to keep that.
It's a testament to my team, to the team at Severin, not even my team, the team at Severin. Everybody was you know, down to keep working and keep doing what we do. And I'm sure it was the same at Vinegar Syndrome. In fact, I know it was, because I know them well. But yeah, and we were lucky, like I say, to be in a business that could keep doing this. So we just wanted to keep working, keep producing the discs, and that's what we did.
Amazing. Guys in the chat, keep the questions coming. We're just going to address the last film, I guess the second to last film, because the last one has not been officially revealed yet.
Correct.
Although I think it leaked. I don't know if you know that.
I think it leaked as well, and I was not very fucking happy about it. But hey, those things happen.
Yeah. We want to address it, but yeah, you'll officially know tonight, everybody. But
the key to that one is that it's having another one of our unofficial. Its title was a sequel to another film franchise, so there will be a slipcase that we aren't able to promote, and we can only put out there for a couple of days because otherwise we'll get into trouble. So we'll have that slipcase like we allegedly have done before, and so it'll be available for a burst and then it's gone forever.
Gotcha. Yeah, like allegedly I have a movie called Jaws 5, but allegedly.
What is that?
Yeah, you've never heard of it? Oh yeah, it's not many people know about it.
Okay, now I'm calling Universal after this.
Oh no, I mean I don't have that. All right, let's talk about The Masturbating Gunman. This is the Intervision release. Talk about this one.
So yes, so Intervision is our sub-label, and we sporadically release another film on Intervision. The last one was Frankie and His Pals from last year, which was very surprisingly fast-selling and successful, and nobody had seen it at the time. And it was the choice of Zach, who works at Severin, because he had known of it for years and had been tracking it down for years. Anyway, we went to Arizona. Me, Zach, and Andrew went to Arizona this time last year to help Jason package up a bunch of the mid-year sale orders. And in the evening, we'd get some beers and talk about, okay, what are we going to do next? And we needed to find another Intervision title. And Zach says Mark Savage has a movie called The Masturbating Gunman, which is not out. And I was like, well, I know, Mark, why have I never heard of this movie? And it's because it was released in the early days of DVD under some absurd title that I'm not familiar with. But I called up Mark, and he had recently revisited it and up-resed it and redone the master. And when I watched it, it's an absolute hoot, and it's actually a pretty well-made underground movie. Frankie and His Pals is more like sort of a home movie, but Masturbating Gunman is just what you would want from a film called The Masturbating Gunman. If that sounds like something that would be up your alley, well, this is it. That should be on the box. That's exactly what you think it is. Yes.
And this, you got a commentary with Mark Savage. Actually, we're going to have Mark on tomorrow. He's coming on.
Okay. Yeah, no, Mark's great. Mark I've known since I worked at Blue Underground, and he came into the office, and we hit it off right away. And so periodically we get together, talk about independent film. Mark's amazing. He's a proper independent filmmaker who's just continued to produce features, first of all in his native Australia, and then he moved here, and he's continued to find enough financing to keep making movies, and he makes them his way. He makes the movies he wants to make, and that, as an independent filmmaker, is the most you can ask.
Absolutely.
And Masturbating Gunman is kind of is probably, of the films I've seen of his, I think it's the closest to a comedy that he's ever made. And he is a man with a sense of humor, but quite a lot of his films are very bleak. They're very dark. But this one is outrageous and over the top.
Well, that's good to know that. I mean, from the trailer, you can tell it definitely has a sense of humor. I don't think I'd like to watch a bleak movie about a masturbating gunman.
Yeah, this one's a hoot.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited to watch that. Now, we've covered the films here, and we sort of talked about the secret title that's going to be released.
Yeah.
And the book, I know you said the book is going to be back in stock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm pretty sure we confirmed that we're getting more copies earlier today.
Okay. Excellent. So it's showing out of stock here, guys, but it check back, and this may change, within a few hours. So
keep checking back over the weekend, because you can always add to order. On your Severin order. So if you already placed one order, you can go back and then check add to order if you want to add to it.
Yeah, that's dangerous. The add to order, like, well, I already paid for shipping, I might as well throw in a couple more.
Well, yeah, that's an incentive. That's the, if you're a collector, you might want to just add one more. You don't want to be paying full shipping, do you? You want to add it to your existing.
Absolutely. Now, I don't want to keep you, because I know you're at the end of your day and you've been rushing around. So, guys, we have maybe another 15, 20 minutes here with David. He's over there. For those of you who have just joined us, he's over there in the UK on sort of a working holiday, and I'm very honored to have had a chance to get some time with him to talk about this. Send in your questions now. We'll do questions towards the end. But before we do that, and this is probably very difficult, what are your top 5 Severin titles that everybody should own? I'd love to hear if somebody's coming in new, what should they pick up?
Santa Sangre is number 1. Blood to Dracula is number 2. I have no doubt in my mind that they are my 2 favorite Severin releases. Threads is number 3. Now, Threads is a very, very grim BBC movie about a nuclear holocaust, so it's not for everybody. But it did absolutely traumatize the nation when it first aired. It was a TV movie as well, which is astonishing when you watch it. From the director of The Bodyguard, an LA story. This film is nothing like those films. It is one that will definitely upset you. And so that would be number 3. What else have we got? There's so many films that I love. Where do I start? Let's see. I mean, Bloody Moon's up there as well, because it's that's my favorite Franco. It's also one of the first ones that Carl and I, my partner my partner in Severin, who we went to school together. And it was one of the first films we watched together in the VHS era, probably around 1982 when we were 10. And we watched that and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the same day, and pretended we were playing a board game for our parents when they would come into the room. But actually watching 2 landmark, phenomenal movies, very different landmark for very different reasons. What else? Keep scrolling. I'll pick some more. Yeah,
that's what I'll do. Massacre in Dinosaur Valley was a really nice surprise.
Isn't it fun? Massacre in Dinosaur Valley is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
The Uncanny is another one that I always recommend. Not a favorite for everybody, but it was an anthology movie that, we all like anthology movies, horror fans, and that was one of the first that I ever saw. And I saw it on TV, and I would watch it over and over and over and over. Boys Next Door, absolute masterpiece. Penelope Spheris, very violent movie. The next movie she made after Suburbia, and she more or less has disowned it now, because she thinks it's too violent, and she thinks it glorifies violence. I don't disagree. I don't agree with that assessment. I think the movie, there's nothing glorious about the violence in this movie. It's very hard hitting and very upsetting, but an incredible movie. I mean, Maxwell Caulfield is amazing in it. Charlie Sheen is amazing in it. It's a terrific film.
Yeah, it's kind of it's mind blowing that this is a Penelope Spheris film. I mean, it's
the director of Wayne's World. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
I mean, she's more aligned with being the director of The Decline of the Western Civilization and Suburbia. I mean, she's definitely a person of punk, and The Boys Next Door is definitely something that had a lot of attitude and anger in it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Vi is another one that really surprised me. I thought that was a beautiful film.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So Soviet horror right there. Yeah. I mean, it's always fun when you can sort of reach out beyond the obvious territories for these kinds of movies. Satan's Slave, the Indonesian horror movie that we have as well, is terrific.
Oh, Indonesian. Okay, for some reason I kept thinking it was like Filipino, but Indonesian.
Indonesian, yeah. Yeah. Had to go to Jakarta to shoot the extras on that one.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah, there's so much unique stuff here. I mean, I think your catalog is so different than a lot of other labels. It's, I mean, in a way, there's not. You tend to certainly lean toward the sleazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which is in keeping with the name. Is that? Would you say this is your favorite genre? Just sort of the sleazier side of horror?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what that's what I grew up seeking out, was the gorier stuff, to be honest. But that was usually European horror movies at the early video era. So stuff like Anthropophagus and Absurd, those were video nasties. So we have a lot of video nasties on the label, and we've in fact just been buying the world rights in perpetuity on a bunch of them as well. So we used to collect the tapes, and now we actually collect the movies. And they cost about the same actually now, but yeah, we've bought out a bunch more, and we'll be bringing several more to Blu-ray later in the year and next year. Oh,
that's awesome! That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this has been a fairly strong year for you guys. I mean, are you guys going to slack for the rest of the year, or should we expect?
Not at all. We have so much stuff coming. And then the Black Friday sale is, I mean, we're probably going to have more titles in that than we have on in this sale.
Wow! Oh my God! Andrew's chiming in again. Tell them about why you chose to put out Invasion of the Blood Farmers.
Invasion of the Blood Farmers was also an early one that that Carl and I picked up from the video shop when we were, pre-teens. And I think it was our first ever visit to the video shop, and the cover just leapt out at us. I mean, if you look at the cover on the Blu-ray, that is the cover that we saw on a VHS tape. So, and it looked like the best movie of all time. It's like, how can this movie be anything other than amazing? And yes, it's amazing, but not for the reasons we thought that it would be. And then Brian from the New Beverly Cinema in LA called one day and said that the director has the negative and is looking for somebody to put it out on Blu-ray. And so he put us in touch, and sure enough, he had the negative in pristine condition. So we brought it over to the office, we scanned it, and off we went.
That's amazing. That's actually one of my favorite movies that you guys put out. I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, no, it's great fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Really good stuff. And Birdemic, I think, is kind of a really interesting release for you guys.
Yes.
Explain how you wined and dined Jameswynn to
Well, I was actually at Sundance with my film Plague Town, which wasn't in Sundance, it was in Troma Dance. And at the time, a guy called Evan Husney was working for Troma, who were also distributed by the same company who distributed Severin in the early days. And we were also there with a guy called Bobby Hacker, who is still a friend to this day. And he saw a van going up and down the main street in Park City, Utah, which had a Sharpie written on the side saying Birdemic, and a guy handing out flyers. And it turned out he'd spelt the name of his own movie wrong on the side of his van. It was actually Birdemic. So he had to go along to the screening, which was screening in a bar. And there were only 5 people there, him and I think 4 people who were in a band who were playing after the screening. So he was really the only one, as far as I'm aware, who went to see the movie. And he couldn't believe what he'd seen. And I remember him joining us after that screening and just unable to contain himself with his excitement, having seen this jaw-dropping film. and the Q&A that followed it with the director. And so that night we were all just riled up about how we had to see this film Birdemic. And we ended up getting a copy. Me, Carl, and John, who were the partners in Severin, watched it completely sober, like a completely different context from Bobby. And we too thought this film was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. So we did a deal with James. We brought it to the Silent Movie Theatre, the Cine Family in LA, and did a premiere, which Tim and Eric hosted. And it was a packed house, and it just brought the house down. It was an incredible experience. And then we kind of toured it around the US and internationally as well. And it got on, major TV chat shows. James was on major TV chat shows about this movie, and everybody just kind of dumbfounded about this guy who'd made this kind of ripoff of The Birds, but from a global warming perspective. And he was just unfazed by the fact that everyone was saying this movie's ridiculously bad. He was like, well, you may say that it's got flaws and it's rough around the edges, but my message is getting across. It's about global warming. And and it was some of the most fun that we've had in the history of Severin with some of those screenings. And now James sort of popped up again about a year ago and said he wants to make Birdemic 3. Birdemic 2 we were not involved with. And again, it was kind of that very reasonable price he was quoting to make this movie. So we said, okay, let's roll the dice, and agreed to his budget, and he wanted to show us stuff about it and tell us about it, but we're like, no, we want it to be like Birdemic. This has to be pure you. We shouldn't have any input in this. This has to be your film. So that's what he is currently out shooting.
Oh wow! Okay. So that might be breaking news. I had no idea that Birdemic.
Well, it's James has a Birdemic 3 Facebook page. I don't know if he's got more than 10 followers, but it's definitely on there, and he's started shooting, and he keeps on posting pictures of the new cast and things like that. I haven't seen any of it. I'm just saying, James, show me when it's ready.
Wow! Oh, that's going to be exciting. And I think the second one was fine, but it definitely felt diluted. It didn't feel as pure as the first one. So
I think he was also trying to be funny, which was the first one wasn't a comedy. So
right.
I think that was kind of the key. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, guys, let's get to your questions here. I'm gonna go back a little bit. Okay, start with Ken here. Any chance for a Jimmy Wang Yu collection?
Not likely. I mean, we've dabbled a bit in Asian action cinema, and we're working on a Bruceploitation documentary and restoring some Bruceploitation movies, but that's about as deeply as we're going at this point. And it's a very difficult world to penetrate in terms of getting the rights and getting decent elements for the masters and stuff like that. So that's as far as we're going at this point.
Copy that. John Peters says, I love the black cases. What's that origin?
That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I think that might be a Jason question, because I think we did it for one particular release and they looked really good. So then we just kept doing it.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, it definitely sets the label apart, in my opinion. Vincent says, any Giallos releases this year?
Yes.
There you go.
Actually, the September titles, there will be a Giallo in the September titles, which haven't been announced yet.
The September titles. Okay, great. Because you guys, how far have you gone? Did you do? August is the.
We announced August. That's the Overboard, Kinky Collection, Cannibal Man, and No One Heard the Scream. And No One Heard the Scream is kind of a Giallo. It's just a Spanish Giallo.
Yeah, I've seen Cannibal Man. I think that's a really amazing film.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Jeffrey says, I went a little loco, Mr. Gregory. So
good.
That's what he likes to hear. That's what he likes to hear. Any chance of sale titles dipping below what they're currently at in the future? Miss the old sale pricing.
Probably not. It's probably not worth our while to do that, I'm afraid.
Gotcha. I believe, let me see, Ragnar had a question. Oh, here we go. He says, what will the next Severin figure be? And you might not be able to reveal this, but
I'm trying to think. Are you talking about one of the toys?
Yeah, yeah, like the Spider Island.
The pins. Oh yeah, the Spider. I see the resin figures and stuff like that. You know, I can't reveal that at this point, but there are some special things in the works.
Awesome. So there will be one maybe this year.
Maybe.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna say. You know, the release schedule tends to change depending on how close we are to completion on a given disc.
Gotcha.
But I think so. Yes, I've already seen the prototype and it looks good. So hopefully it'll be before the end of the year.
Excellent. Chuck says, "Hey David, any chance of more Severin Kids titles, like maybe some of those twisted foreign fairy tales I sent you?"
Yeah, not out of the question, but again, it's kind of like Intervision. It's sort of like when we get around to it, there's going to be no regular schedule for Severin Kids, but we're definitely looking at a few things which would fit that mold. Okay.
Corey Schmidt, how did the Andy Milligan set come about? That's probably a giant question.
Yes, I'm trying to think how it first came about. I think we were offered the Mishkin films, the four Rats Are Coming, the Wells Are Here, Tortured Dungeon, Bloodthirsty Butchers, and Man with Two Heads. I think we were offered those, and so we bought them outright in perpetuity. And then the longer versions were found, and so then it became something very exciting because the release versions had already had releases, fairly recent releases. So then it evolved, and we had to talk to the big filmmaker who owns the elements on some of them, and he was on board because he's a big Andy Milligan fan. And then quite late in the game, I think maybe it was Stephen Thrower again who told us to talk to Ken Lane, the guy who owned Legacy of Blood, aka Legacy of Horror. And so that was kind of another one that was like a real gem that hadn't had a proper uncut release. And so when he sent his 35mm theatrical print, which played on 42nd Street, that sealed the deal that we had to kind of go the whole way. You know, in the same way we did with Adamson, but a lot of the films are lost in the case of Andy Milligan, so there was only so far we could go with his filmography. Also, a couple of the later ones that had already been out on Unearthed Films, I think, brought them out. So they'd recently just come out, so we didn't include them. But with the exception of those later films, all the existing genre films, we were able to put in the box.
Yeah, it's a heck of a box. I mean, it's definitely one that took me by surprise, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of people did. I think, you know, given the context of how we put it together, me and the whole team put it together, it seemed like people were kind of prepared for what these films are, and a lot of people got a lot of pleasure out of it, and it did a considerably better than we expected.
That's amazing to hear. So you probably can't say anything, but maybe wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Are we going to see more director box sets down the line?
Definitely.
Okay, good. I like that. Ragnar asks, ever think of a subscription service like Vincent?
You know, it would be nice, but we are, you know, a little more haphazard in terms of our month-to-month schedule. So it would be extra stress for us to try and meet an exact amount of films to release every given month. So we'd rather just kind of play that by ear. Some months have more, some months have less. So I don't think a subscription would work. I mean, again, not out of the question in the future, but not something that we can possibly do now.
Gotcha. Chuck says, ask David about the twisted German, Mexican, and Russian fairy tales I sent him. Oh, okay. So we already asked about that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of ownership. Like Zach, who watches a lot of the Severin Kids stuff, watch them, but you know, it's that would take a lot of research to both find out who owns them, but also who if the elements are around and if they're in good enough condition and all that kind of thing. We have just so many other titles that we're doing that for, that we know have a given audience, that we have to prioritize those. So so that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, that's still always the hard part. Jeffrey says, I only discovered Severin last year during the pandemic, and I'm enamored with them. Thank you for the great content. You
are welcome. Thank you.
It's a love fest here. Will Fraser says, could Severin ever create a streaming service like Arrow Video?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was discussed a couple of years ago, and we actually got to the point of actually building a platform, but it just seemed like yet more work that we would be putting on our own shoulders. And, you know, once you have a streaming service, you've got to fill it with content. And, you know, it just seemed like too much of a project for the amount of people that we are and the amount of time that we have.
Right. Joel says,
it's more likely to see our stuff on Arrow's platform in the future, I would think.
Gotcha. Joel Wood says, what are some Holy Grail titles that you would love to get for Severin?
Well, there two of them are coming out this year. My top two, and one of them is Blood for Dracula. The other one is coming out probably, it will be announced in the September titles. So I mean, there's lots of films that you know, we're always looking for, but you know, it's an ever-expanding list of titles we want to do, and it's a lot to do with what's available, what we can find the rights to, versus, you know, what's already out or already spoken for by another label.
Copy that. John asks, any chance of re-releasing some Al Adamson movies, maybe his more popular ones for those who missed the set?
We may revisit some of them for single discs, but certainly not going to do all of them. But yeah, like you say, some of the more popular ones, they're not on the schedule at the moment, and not a high priority. But we will get to some of the bigger ones for sure.
Excellent. Question about Blood for Dracula: is the set limited, and will there be a standard version in the future?
It is limited, but it's limited to quite a high number. And standard version, again, it's not on the schedule, but not out of the question in the future.
There you go. Jeff H.S., you may have said this already, but any plans to direct another narrative feature? Plaguetown has atmosphere for days, playa.
Thank you. Yes, working on 3 different projects at the moment, developing them. Hopefully, one of them I can, you know, find the time to actually, you know, raise the money for and actually do. But not going to happen this year.
Yes, that's it's way harder to make your own films than probably find obscure titles, right?
Yes.
Phil says, loved the picnic basket package. How did that sell? I don't know if you can reveal that, but
you know, it sold just fine. But I think it was one of those things where it was just more of a nightmare to package than it sounded like when we came up with it as an idea. So it was, you know, a lot more work than maybe it should have been.
Yeah, I gotcha. Probably finding boxes to fit that in would be the issue. Yeah. A-Pie says, this was one of the most solid sale lineups I have seen come from Severin. Could the September title be a Video Nasty?
No, there is no Video Nasty in the September lineup, but there will be before the end of the year.
Copy that.
More than one.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Joel throwing some love. Love your documentaries, good sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Adamson one was fantastic. Really well done.
Well, thank you. It was very enjoyable to make, and I'm very happy with it.
Oh man, yeah, it's good stuff. If you guys have not seen that, do grab that. That's worth it. Razor says, just joined. So sorry, this has been asked already.
You got one from PayPal, then you're good.
Oh, okay. There you go. Then you're all set. All right, guys. It's getting late for David over there, and I don't want to keep him because he's been busy all day. Do you have any last words for the people watching, the people who are looking to add some Severin titles to their shelves this weekend.
Just say keep following us on social media, because we're always announcing new stuff, and the social media is.
Oh, I think I lost him. You went there a little bit. Do you hear me, David? Uh-oh, the signal loss. Okay. The Wi-Fi cut out or something. You're frozen, bud. I'm not sure if. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna restore itself or not. Oh, yeah.
Hello, there I am.
There you go. There you go.
What happened there? It must be the hotel I'm at. The internet connection is unstable.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And there's more stuff. Obviously, check it. If anything's sold out at the site right now in the sale, chances are it might come back in stock. So you need to keep on. I think Jason and his team are on it all weekend, but so far so good.
Yeah, guys. Make sure that once you place your order, you can always add to cart. So you can always go back and
that's right.
And toss some other things. If something that David has said has sparked your interest, feel free to add to cart. A quick question, but before we're gone, how does somebody get you material? Like, let's say somebody has like a film print in their attic. Do they just email you at Severin and say, "Hey, I've got something you might want to look at"?
Yeah, it happens all the time. People actually write to us and say, "Hey, I've got this film," and it won't always be me that's watching it, but it will usually be watched by somebody. So, and you know, just recently we got a guy in South Africa wrote to us saying, "Hey, there's this film that's only got one film print. Do you want to see it?" Sounded really interesting. We looked at it and ended up licensing it. So those things happen all the time.
That's amazing. All right. Well, if anybody watching has any lost,
yeah,
print,
and if anybody out there has a print of Unhinged, the 1982 video nasty, get in touch, because that's a film that's on the verge of being lost. There's no film elements on it, which is very upsetting.
Oh no! Oh, that's sad to hear. That happens all the time, unfortunately. All right. Well, David, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Master Chaos.
We will we'll talk soon, my friend. You have a good evening over there.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Later, man. Bye. All right. That was amazing. How cool was that? John says, thank you. Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm glad you guys were able to enjoy that. We had to do it a little earlier, but it is what it is. We got it done, and I was able to share a little love of Severin for you guys. Let's call it a day. I will see you guys tomorrow on Let's Watch. For now, I bid you adieu. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.